Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the case against Representative from New Jersey, LaMonica McIver, and the ruling today by a New Jersey District Court judge turning down her motion to dismiss the case on grounds of either legislative immunity, the speech or debate clause, or selective prosecution. Okay, these cases against Democrats are just proliferating in different forms. It's a little hard to keep track of them. This is a member of Congress who shows up at a facility where detainees for immigration are being held to conduct an inspection, which is something that's totally part of her job and she's totally entitled to do. Now, at the time, there was a whole kind of scrum out there. And there was, you may remember, the local Mayor Baraka, who was charged supposedly with trespass because he's not a member of Congress, and that was dismissed. But there's a whole kind of, 40, 50-second sort of like tussle, where it's at a minimum bilateral, right? There's pushing and pushing back, etc. And the administration goes in and arrests McIver on a charge of assaulting these immigration agents. By the way, she was there, she said, to conduct inspections because it's this privately run jail, and there were a lot of problems with it. She was completely accurate and prescient. We've had since then escapes and the like, and it's really been the sort of facility that is beset with administrative and operative difficulties, and members of Congress ought to be looking at. Okay, so what happens here? I want to start. I think the headline is what doesn't happen. When you look at the whole kind of mess that occurs, the argument I think that it gives rise to is this is an aggressive ICE agent going back and forth and pushing, and McIver pushing back. So, but that is a factual point. That's something for a jury to consider, and saying, oh, this isn't an assault, or she's getting as good as she's giving. She's just, staying put and insisting on her rights. That's the sort of thing, though, you establish at trial. She wanted to get the whole case dismissed without trial first for arguments of this selective prosecution, and the judge said, Judge Jamel Semper, a Biden appointee, that she just hasn't made out the requirements for really being singled out because she is a Democrat. And we know from the Comey and James cases that that's a very, very, very difficult charge to make out. And of course, here to say it's because she's a Democrat, on the one hand, everyone they're prosecuting is a Democrat. On the other, so many Democrats, of course, they're not prosecuting. If they could, they maybe would get to all of them. But it makes it hard to make that kind of causal argument. At least Semper doesn't see it. And then second, she was arguing, was McIver, look, I was doing my job, as indeed she was. My job includes inspecting these facilities, and Congress has to provide oversight. And Semper here kind of sliced things fairly thin. He said, yeah, okay. But so her argument, by the way, to put a finer constitutional point on it, is it's therefore covered when I'm doing my duties as a legislator by the speech or debate clause. Same thing as if they tried to arrest me. This is the sort of constitutional origins of the speech or debate clause, because I'm making a speech on the floor of the House, which they don't like. And of course, there's a whole jurisprudence of when does that basic protection extend to other things. When you're campaigning, for example? No. When you're in committee reports or meetings, probably. Basically, you must be doing your legislative work, and that even simplifies things. The law is more complicated. But what Judge Semper said is, even if she's protected generally in her role of doing oversight, that doesn't mean everything she does during that official visit is shielded by the speech or debate clause. So he's very finely articulating maybe she's showing up. I want to inspect, speech or debate. But then when the tussle begins, the argument would be the actual pushback isn't covered by speech or debate. Now, this is an immunity claim by McIver, and remember from the Trump cases how that works. She is able to bring an appeal before going to trial because the core of an immunity entitlement is not to face trial in the first place. So she's going to be able to now take this up to the Third Circuit, which oversees the district court in New Jersey, and press her immunity claim and probably say something anchored in the point I was just making, that, you can't slice things that thin and say, in general, you're there for immunity, but when you scratched your head, you weren't, or to subdivide that I think will be the legal issue on appeal. But Semper says, she doesn't make it out. So we're going to go now to the Third Circuit, and that's just going to proceed methodically. It's not going to be some emergency motion. She will appeal, as she has a right to do, saying she's immune. One thing that came out is that in the body-worn camera videos by the officers that the government had to release as part of its obligations in preparing for trial show a top Homeland Security official telling agents that the mayor's arrest, Baraka's, was at the direction of the Deputy Attorney General. That would be Todd Blanche, still the Deputy Attorney General. So we have, we're talking about a case that, notwithstanding, I think in any other administration, it would have been, there was some scrum here. The agents should know better than to rough up members of Congress. Anyway, we're not going to bring charges and make a federal case out of it. They're not only making a federal case out of it, they're making a priority federal case going all the way to the Deputy Attorney General. I think there's just no argument that that isn't because of the politicized nature of it being a member of Congress. That's not the same necessarily as showing a selective prosecution, but man, it's really in keeping with the whole politicization, weaponization of the department that this crew is doing as has never happened before, and that they are lying and saying it was the Biden folks who did. This really brings it home when the Deputy Attorney General is green lighting these charges personally. Okay, so next step here is things are going to go kind of quiet for a while. She'll file her appeal to the Third Circuit. The Third Circuit will take it up, I think, in the normal course. Otherwise, it'll be kind of on the back burner for us while we see what the Third Circuit does with the judges holding today that McIver doesn't have the protection of the speech or debate clause. In the meantime, you have a lot of commentary saying, man, this is troubling. Prominent professor saying, you have members of the opposition party doing something that they're supposed to do, that is inspection, and then you have executive branch officials bringing charges. That's very worrisome. Those criticisms, I think, are well taken. The whole thing stinks and is troubling. What the court here has said, though, is basically we'll leave that up to the factual and sort of moral judgment of the community, that is the jury, but she doesn't have an entitlement not even to go to trial. We'll see if that holds up from the Third Circuit, but it'll be a while until we know. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.